Welcome. We are here interviewing yet another artist on the studio tour, the Studio Artist Tour, which is coming up June 1 and June 2nd. With us is Joe Cooper. Joe, thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much,
Joe
Jeff.
Cooper
Thanks for having
Design.
me. That's
Sorry.
right. That's my business name.
Okay. And you are the 17th, the 17th guest that we've had in this series out of 66. We're really happy about that.
That's great.
And it's been really interesting. There's going to be at least number 18. We know that. So if you are out there and you're one of the 66 artists and you're not sure, you can see we don't bite. These are pretty easy. People seem to have some fun. So let's maybe push that number above 20 if we can. So we really enjoyed when your better half, Paula, came in and spoke of her pottery. And that is ash-fired. It's beautiful work.
Yeah.
How long has she been doing that?
She's been doing that since probably the early 80s. That soda ash is a new direction for her. She was previously firing an electric kiln, and this is really a live fire adventure. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, yeah, we interviewed,
process.
in our interview, she described the process and she described building the kiln. And it sounds like it was a very ambitious task for the two of you.
It certainly was. It was a team effort. We had purchased the materials and the design to build it, and all that remained was to actually do it. And right then is when the pandemic hit. So we had the materials in hand and a little shortage of work and the time to maybe get going on it, and we actually put it together fairly efficiently and fast, and she was firing within 4 or 5 months. So
I saw some pictures when we interviewed her last month, and then I found some new pictures today, and there are like holes in the side and the back where huge
yeah,
flames
it's
shoot into
literally
this
a
thing.
dragon that she's taming with this process, taming, riding, hanging on for dear life. It's a pretty dynamic bit of work that she does there, and not a guarantee that it will turn out. You know, my work is fairly prescriptive. I put it out, I lay it out on a table, put it together as I'm going to, and it is what I think it's going to be in the end. Short surprises, of course. Her work is a dynamic process involving first the forms, then the patterning, and then whatever happens in the kiln.
That's right.
So it's that huge variable that I don't think I could muster as far as leaving it up to chance. And her experience as well comes to bear, of course. So.
Now, you work in the medium of wood and others, but I've noticed at least the photos that we're going to show today, a lot of that is wood.
Yes. I've been doing woodwork as a profession, cabinet work most recently, for a better part of 40 years, and my artwork is an extension of that shop work, and I often use artifacts from construction in my work, and also techniques and tools that I've developed over time, as well as just an awareness and affinity for architecture also is sort of woven into my work.
Do you know Dan Shelley?
I do, yes.
Does good work.
He's a fellow cabinet guy, furniture guy.
Yeah. We have a boat that he used to formerly own.
Right.
It's quite something.
That's right.
So your website describes oil, encaustic, canvas, paper, metal. So you do work in other mediums.
I do. The oil is really referring mostly to oil paint, which I will put on conventional canvases stretched in a oil painting fashion, largely focused on abstract type material or reference material and just intuition. But then the other materials have just come into play as I sort of have a whim to do it. This is my alter ego to my cabinet work that has to actually function and fit somebody's needs. This is more free of client, free of architect, free-form design to see what I could come up with. So it's very satisfying.
Have you done much encaustic?
I got into it about 5 or 6 years ago. I haven't done any since. I still have some materials. I mean, I'm borderline between being a hoarder with materials and also, of course, then process. So I have to be really careful not to get too much stuff in hand with too few ideas out the door. So the studio tour is a great motivator for me to get actually
Yeah.
to building and,
Yeah.
and make some things.
Jeremy,
So-
do you want to start showing some of the slides that we have to look at? So why don't you tell us what we're looking at?
So that's an artifact of a large glue lamb timber that was dropped off at my shop by a friend of mine saying,
really
can you
like
do
this.
anything with this?
I really like this.
And I said, I don't know. Is it sound? And we kind of checked it out, and I had to work with the shape. That was essentially the block of it. And this was a 40-foot long beam initially, and this was just the offcut from it. So I rendered this into kind of, by a combination of cuts and different patterning, into this bench type shape. And it's a substantial piece. Then oil painted on top of that, kind of a thinned oil paint wash in different aspects for the color. So
Really
it was a
beautiful.
fun piece.
It looks really hard to move.
And one of a kind. I mean, there isn't going to be another chunk just like that
Right. Beautiful.
unfortunately. If I bought a new beam and cut it into pieces, it wouldn't have the
Right.
sort of patina and age and
Right.
character that piece has. So
Make I don't know, I guess it's bench height, is it?
it's bench height.
Yeah.
It's 19 or 20 inches high. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay, next.
Now that's much smaller in scale, maybe 12 inches long, 8 by 12, and it's a cedar frame that has some colored paper applied to it, and that was a real moving target piece. The watercolor gouache I used on that had a tendency to run and pull. And so as I put each piece of paper on there, things wanted to sort of shift and bleed, but it left this pretty magical kind of
Yeah.
quality to
Beautiful.
it. So that was sort of almost like a performance piece in the sense that I couldn't have drawn that and tried to make it happen. It was sort of, it evolved as I worked on the piece.
It's really sculpture.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, that's kind of my painting work and sculpture work and cabinet work have all been sort of circling one another over
Huh.
the years, and
Yeah.
once in a while they sort of overlap in a really unique
Yeah, it's beautiful.
way.
Nice.
Thank you.
I like this.
And then that's about 12 inches square, a couple of inches thick. That's a plaster and Douglas fir piece that, again, sort of took on a life of its own. I built the armature and then filled it with plaster, and the plaster actually had a really nice wash effect to the wood, made it seem really old. It has sort of an ancient
Right.
artifact of plaster buildings kind of ruin feel to it.
It's so simple, and in its simplicity, it's complex,
Well-
because you look at all the subtle, like the way that it kind of shrunk on the left side or
Yeah,
peeled
right.
back or whatever. And
You're onto my game, and you're actually appreciating one of the major tenets of what I'm trying to do, which is create exactly that.
Yeah.
Make it seem very calm and at the same time interesting.
Yeah, this one really stopped me.
Yeah. Oh,
When I
thank you.
first looked at these, I really like that. Have you done that again?
Well, that's sort of the dilemma is, can I make the big brother or small brother or whatever it is, sister piece to this? And I don't know if I'm officially diagnosed as ADD, but I jump from one thing to another, and making a sequential piece is often not really in the cards. It's more like, let's do something else.
We had the Studio Wild ladies in, and they made a really amazing table. And they did something a little different, or the weather was different. Resin is very, very dependent on
Sure.
atmosphere. And they got just this really unique result when it was done, and they can't replicate it.
No, I know. This is
Tried
kind
it.
of the curse and the blessing. I mean, luckily I'm not attached to making that piece
Right,
and
right.
that next piece in a family, because it would be hard to do. And my work is often based on artifacts and remnants and utilizing everything. And it's just hard to sort of follow that recipe again, because there's no recipe. It's just an improv.
And Paula's pottery's even more so. I mean, you when you open a kiln, you just don't know.
That part of it is absolutely random. She has the potential to work in much more distinct series than I do because her work can be sort of controlled in that way. But interestingly, she doesn't do that. She's evolving over the years, and it's really fascinating. A lot of people come on the tour to see that evolution, to see what has come next. And it kind of makes us do the next thing.
Right.
But also it's astonishing when you look over the years at the evolution of not just us, but a lot of the artists on the tour.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Put that last one up, the plaster one, would you, Jeremy? So did this sell? Is this sold?
That is sold. I think everything that I sent pictures of has sold. A lot of my work has sold more recently in a higher percentage, which I don't know if it's partly because I've built a small building that is sort of studio, but mostly presentation and kind of gallery space. And I think that's allowed people to access these simpler pieces in a way where they sort of have a habitat in which they can appreciate them and then foresee that in their own home. So,
Well, I missed the boat on this one because I would have bought that one.
yeah, well, thank you. Maybe its sibling is in the pipeline. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Next. This is interesting.
So that's a really small piece, maybe 10 inches square, and that is an artifact of construction. Its substrate is a piece of plywood that's had sequential cuts made through it or into it in the course of construction and fabrication of pieces. And I just can't bear to throw this out. I have this in 4 by 8 foot sheets every so often, and I just can't bear to throw it away. So I've tried to utilize it for different art projects, and this was one of the early ones and really one of the more successful ones. In fairness, that photo may make it look a little more dramatic than it is, because it's really just a flat plane with eighth of an inch to 3/16 inch slots cut in it.
You've got some big
and then
shadows
some paint.
going on in there.
The photo really
That's
really
good.
pops
That's
it.
That's how you'd want to light that.
Yeah, and that one is something I will never sell. That's just got a special place.
So in woodworking, there's such an emphasis on precision. Is this freeing?
Oh,
when you
absolutely.
can just like
100%.
you know,
100%.
just spontaneous and just like, I'll
That's
live with
right.
it. It's not exactly
right.
what I thought it would do, but I'll live with that. And
There's a whole aesthetic of that, and I'm not all the way there. I still have some need to have things fit and work, but it's more to my eye than it is to a particular outcome.
or your intuition.
Intuition then leads to, a lot of times I'll work on multiple pieces, and so out of the corner of my eye I'll have something sitting and I'll just decide that one's ready for another move, and here's the move.
Right.
And that's really how I found
That's
pieces
cool.
resolve versus from I'm going to look and work on it until it's done.
You don't make cabinets by intuition.
That has not actually
Like a
come up yet.
blueprint,
Not
not
too
like-
many clients would be interested, I think, in just whatever happens.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeremy, got any more?
Oh, and that's an example of a large pivot door that I built for a project. Juniper panel, which was a bunch of live edge slabs that I had to somehow nest and manipulate to fit the center panel.
They almost look like leaves.
Yeah, that's just an example of what I'm hoping will be sort of, as you mentioned, have I done this in my cabinet work? And occasionally I have a client who's like, have some fun with it. It still has to be a door and close and seal and lock, but that's the retirement plan, is rather than build brand new cabinets, kitchens, to be moving more towards one-of-a-kind art pieces, sculptural furniture, sculptural doors, things like that. So,
Well, that'll do really well here,
Yeah.
I think.
yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And that's another artifact piece. That one's almost probably 40 inches by 46, and another artifact of all the cuts and patterning that has happened just in random construction process. So entirely random cut marks and then just enhanced with the oil paint.
How'd you do the circles?
Those were a router. That was a routing template for, I don't remember exactly what. They're very symmetrical, so it had something to do with the screen, I think, that had some circular patterns, and but it didn't even show up until it was black on the, like a block print. The black stain on the top just really popped and created a lot of depth to that particular piece.
I would name that cutting board.
Yeah,
That's really neat.
I don't recall the name of it.
Do you try to name all your
I
work?
do. I do name my pieces again as it pops into my head.
Does the name come before it's finished?
Never.
No, you have
Always
to wait.
after. Yeah. And usually about 5 minutes before the tour, and I'm scrambling around going, "Oh my God, what is this one?" And really, it's literally more than night before. The few nights before is when I sit with everything and see how I'm going to display it and conjure up some titles if they come to me, and sometimes they don't. And so that's just the way that goes.
What's the mood the night before the studio tour starts?
Dread, panic. Did we get everything done? And exhaustion. Panic of, am I going to be ready? Because I'm never quite ready.
Right.
Exhaustion because we've been working on the property, working on the buildings, working on the studios, and making work all this time, as well as whatever else we have going on.
You're the third person who described it in some form of anxiety or worry.
Well, we're going public with a whole new
Yeah.
body of work, and
Yeah.
that's exciting and exhilarating, and why we do it, but it's not without some trepidation that
Opening night jitters.
it may not have the weight of what you'd hoped, or get the reception, but then once the thing absolutely starts, when people are there, all that goes away, and it's just, you're in the moment of,
Cool.
like I imagine stage work would be. I've never done that, but I think
don't
once
know.
the curtain goes up, there's no room for
We had a 10th grader in here a few days ago, one of the president of the thespian organization at the high school. And I asked her to describe that emotion, what's the payoff for her? And I guessed completely wrong. I thought it would be something that was exhilarating to her, internally,
Sure.
or some kind of reward. But her answer was the camaraderie, being with the other people, and it was a really great answer. You should, if you haven't seen that video,
I will check it out.
you should watch that video. It was from the Tuesday, hey, what's going on around here at the last half or last quarter with Heather Spalding on Tuesday. That's on the site right now.
Great.
But that was a beautiful answer
Yeah,
as
yeah.
far as that magic that happens once the show starts.
Sure.
So
Well, I can imagine that is very interpersonally related. For me, the showing is very satisfying, and I have to say, over the years, that's become even more gratifying, just because there is sort of a momentum that happens when you do the tour this many times. A certain number of people come and want to see what's new, what's going on. And so there's sort of, you're not shooting fish in a barrel exactly, but it's not an entirely unknown quantity.
do you have a sense of the proportionality, how many are locals and how many are visitors?
Boy, we have ideas. We're going to count every year, keep a count. At our place, we have 4 different almost stations, so we're spread out a little bit, and it's hard to know
But
whether
you know who you
everyone
recognize.
makes the rounds.
You know who's familiar.
that, and you used to know that more.
Right.
I think COVID certainly brought a lot more people here year-round, many more than used to live here. So I've talked to people, and they say, we've been here 3 or 4 years. Oh, I've never seen you. I think it's still probably 60, 70% local, maybe even more. Hard to gauge.
And I've heard you see the same people, a lot of the same people each year.
Definitely you do that,
Yeah.
but and you don't even get to talk to everybody necessarily, because even though it's fairly well-spaced, self-guided tour, and we've had times when there are almost no lulls, there could be times when it's very hectic, and there are a lot of people and you just can't visit with everyone as you might like to.
Do you get a lot of questions about your work, or is it more social?
I would say it's pretty specific to the work. Yeah, over time that's evolved more and more, and I think that's partly because of that little studio space I've got. as it was under construction, they wanted to talk about the building, even though there was artwork inside. And when it was finished, they wanted to talk about the art, and no one was talking about the building anymore. So it was interesting how that,
Yeah, that is.
turned.
Do we have any more, Jeremy? I think we got 2 or 3 more. Okay, what's this?
Oh, that's a piece from last year that was it's a block of Douglas fir, and I had an idea for how to make square holes in it and then insert square pegs into that and then paint them up in different colors. So it's essentially, I don't remember the title exactly, but it was something like just the points off of a painting brought forward. That was sort of the concept, such as it is. And those are in different depths,
Right.
which you can't so much see except in the shadow.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's one I would love to do a whole series on those, and I don't know, it just has to happen.
It will. Okay,
Very fun piece to make.
that's it. Okay. Well, where did you grow up?
Paula and I both grew up in Connecticut,
See,
90 miles apart, and met out
I think
here.
I can still hear a
Yeah.
tiny bit of East Coast.
Yeah, maybe. She says mountain still. But yeah, we met out here, and she came out in 90, I came out here in 91, and we met just a little bit random. It felt like a smaller place back then.
Wait, you're both from Connecticut, but you met
We
here?
met here, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I came out to work on houses to do hopefully more cabinet work than straight construction work, which is what manifested. And
Did you come here direct
ever
from
since.
Connecticut?
I actually came here direct from Manhattan. I had a wood shop in Brooklyn, in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn, which is now incredibly exclusive. And back in the late 80s, it was a really rough industrial neighborhood.
What brought you from New York City to
It was time
Friday Harbor,
to make
Washington?
a stand there, or get out.
Had
And
you visited here as a tourist?
I had visited here.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I had family that had visited here and was actually living here at the time. My brother was here.
Okay.
And he moved to Portland, and I moved here he had a cabin, rented a cabin on a lot of acreage that was off the grid. And for me, that was exactly the antidote for getting out of the city.
Yeah.
And I figured I would move to either Seattle or Portland within a certain period of time. And one thing and another, met Paula, and the next thing you knew, we were looking at property and raised our 2 boys here. And it's been no regrets at all. It's just been a great place to
What a change.
spend
One day
our
living in
adult-
New York City and then
It was a big change.
New York City to Friday Harbor. That's
It's a
funny.
big change, but a very welcome one. It was much more my nature to be in a rural atmosphere than in the city.
Yeah.
As much as I appreciated that time, again,
Yeah, I grew up in St. Louis and am vastly more comfortable in
Yeah.
rural areas and small towns.
yeah,
It just
yeah,
doesn't, in a way, it almost doesn't matter where you grew up. It's just you got to find that place that you belong,
no question.
right? And then
No
you-
question.
Once you're there, it's just like, oh, this is it.
And for sure, my people were here. I mean, I started meeting my people at the age of 30 when I got here in a way I had never met my tribe. And they were here. I don't know why and how, but that's sort of, it was a huge pull.
So it's obvious that the environment here is conducive to art. It fosters art. It supports art.
It is for me. I don't know if that would be true for everyone. I mean, the evidence of the studio tour growing in both numbers and count and in also popularity, I think attests to that a little bit. If you wanted an urban atmosphere to stimulate your work, this is not the place.
No.
But if your work is nature inspired, and particularly maybe more solitary there are not a lot of art classes and a lot of art opportunities here, not a lot of,
Except for alchemy.
again, that's relatively new though.
Right.
So yeah, no question, it's a burgeoning scene here. There's no question.
Now, you and Paula have been here for quite a while. How much has San Juan Island changed in the time that you've been here?
Interestingly, not to the eye so much because it's been gradual, most of it. But I remember seeing maps generated of what the island would look like and just being appalled at the 10, 20-year plan. And that's probably all happened in terms of development. But it doesn't feel that way because it's been relatively gradual. We still don't have street lights. We still don't have big box stores.
No stoplights.
They're still relatively, for better or worse, fairly restrictive zoning out in the county. We don't have big sprawling neighborhoods that just got plopped in here, as has happened in Anacortes, and even towns very close have changed quite a bit. So there are changes, but remarkably the same for that amount of time, I think, compared to other places I'm familiar with. Yeah.
Well, Joe, and do you still make cabinets? Or you still?
I do.
You're still in the cabinet
right.
business.
I am. I took my the shop component out from under a larger construction company I worked for from when I got here, when the ownership changed. That was Ravenhill Construction. So I was the in-house cabinet guy for Ravenhill, and then when that ownership changed, when the founder, Pete Kilpatrick, sold the business, I just took the cabinet shop out from under that umbrella as my own entity. And that was 4 years ago now, and it's been a good move for me.
CNL2 is going to start covering the construction industry more here. I think it's kind of, first of all, in terms of economics, it's really important.
Oh,
It's a really, really important.
been for a long time.
Economic engine here.
Huge one, yes.
Tourism, which I love, but tourism kind of hogs the stage and gets all the attention, and that's great. And I completely support tourism here. But construction is kind of an unsung hero, and
Yeah.
we need to pay closer attention to that. So, Joe, it's really nice to meet you. I will see you. You are number 20
That's right.
on the tour. I want to see Paula. I want to see Paula's work. I want to see the kiln. I can't remember. Does the kiln have a name?
Not that I know of.
You need to name your kiln.
Do you think so?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's like a boat. I don't think you want to change it, so you better get it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
And then that's going to be Paula's terrain, not mine.
well, right. But yeah, a kiln needs a name.
I can't promise it will be firing. In fact, I know it will not be that
Right.
day because it'd be fairly distracting for Paula. But it's a pretty impressive
Yeah.
unit.
Well, looking forward to it. We'll see you, and that is June 1st and June 2nd. And the weather will be great.
Absolutely, always
We're
is.
certain of that.
Yep.
So this is Joe Cooper. Joe is number 20 on the tour, and we can't wait. Thanks for joining us. Thanks,
Excellent.
Joe.
Thank you,
very
Jeff.
much.
Yeah,
And thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
absolutely.